The red snow had not melted for 3 days. That was why they sent Eira Venn to wash it. Not a healer, not a priest, not one of the battle commanders who had dragged the dead home from the northern pass. An abandoned Omega with thin wrists, a grey servant cloak, and no family left in the palace to ask why her hands were being put into blood no one else dared touch. Eira knelt on the front steps of Frosthelm, Keep with a wooden bucket beside her and a rag already frozen stiff in her fingers. Above her, the palace rose black against a winter sky, its wolf banners hanging torn and heavy after the failed border battle. Below, nobles gathered in the courtyard beneath fur-lined hoods, watching her scrub the blood-red snow as if it were another punishment arranged for their comfort. The court said the snow was stained by enemy blood. Eira did not believe them. Enemy blood dried, enemy blood blackened. Enemy blood did not glow faintly beneath moonlight or whisper when the wind passed over it. This snow was listening. "Scrub harder," Lord Halver called from the upper landing. Eira kept her head lowered. Lord Halver was the king's chief war counsellor, a broad man in a silver wolf cloak with a scar down one cheek and rings on every finger. He had survived the battle without a wound and returned with the loudest grief. Since the Alpha King had not yet ridden back from the pass, Halver had spoken for the crown for 3 days. He had also chosen Eira for this task. Of course he had. An abandoned Omega could be made useful by humiliation. She could be placed before the court, knees in the snow, and everyone would understand the message. Some blood belonged to warriors. Some blood belonged to kings. Some blood belonged to the nameless hands ordered to clean what power spilled. Eira dipped the rag into the bucket. The water had frozen around the edges. A noblewoman near the steps wrinkled her nose. "Can she not move faster?" "She has Omega blood," another replied. "Even shame is slow in them." Soft laughter followed. Eira pressed the rag into the red snow until her fingers went numb. She had been left at Frosthelm when she was 9, after her mother disappeared from a winter road and her father's pack refused to claim a daughter with no visible wolf strength. The palace had fed her because Omegas were useful in kitchens, laundry rooms, sick rooms, and after battles. No one expected her to lead. No one expected her to fight. No one expected her to survive anything loudly. That was why they forgot she listened. Omegas heard what stronger wolves trampled over. The snow whispered again. Not words. Not yet. A low sound beneath the red crust, like a wolf trying to breathe through ice. Eira's hand still. Halvir saw it. "Do not pause." She looked up before caution could stop her. "My lord, this is not enemy blood." The courtyard fell quiet. Halvar's expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened. And what would an abandoned Omega know of battle blood? Enough to know blood does not keep its own warmth in snow. A few guards shifted. One of Halvir's rings clicked against the rail as his hand tightened. "You were ordered to clean." "Yes," Eira said softly. "Not to lie about what I touched." That silence was worse than laughter. Halvir descended one step. "Careful." Eira lowered her eyes, but not her hand. Her palm remained pressed into the red snow. The cold had begun to burn. Underneath it, something pulsed once. Weak, hidden, alive. The great iron gates groaned open. Every wolf in the courtyard went still. Alpha King Toren Vale rode through the gates on a black warhorse streaked with ice and blood. His armor was cracked across one shoulder. His dark hair was loose from battle, his face pale beneath streaks of mud and red, and his eyes were the hard winter gold of a man who had lost too many soldiers and would not yet let grief speak. Behind him rode what remained of the Northern Guard. Too few, far too few. The court bowed. Eira stayed on her knees because she had no room to rise. Toren's gaze passed over the torn banners, the gathered nobles, Lord Halver on the steps. Then it stopped on Eira, more precisely, on her hand buried in the red snow. A shadow moved behind the king, not cast by torchlight, not fully real. The faint outline of a wolf rose from him, huge and black, its shoulders hunched, its head low, its edges fraying like smoke in a winter wind. The king's wolf shadow looked wounded, starving, almost hollow. Eira forgot to breathe. Toren dismounted slowly. No one spoke. He walked toward the steps, each movement controlled, but Eira saw the tightness around his mouth. Pain. Not from his armor, not from any visible wound. From the wolf behind him. Halva bowed deeply. Majesty, the enemy blood is being cleared before your entry. Toren did not look at him. Why is she touching it? Halva paused. The Omega was assigned to cleanse the steps. The question was not who assigned her. It was why. Eira felt the courtyard shift. Hope was dangerous. She crushed it before it could rise. Halva's voice remained smooth. The red snow unsettled the court. A low-born hand was safest. A low-born hand, Toren repeated. The wounded wolf shadow behind him lifted its head slightly. Halva's thumb pressed over the largest ring on his hand, as if something inside it had begun to move. Eira's palm burned. The red snow beneath her hand melted. Not outward, inward. Silver light broke through the blood-red crust, forming lines beneath her fingers. The snow pulled away from her palm, as if revealing letters hidden under skin. The courtyard gasped. Eira tried to lift her hand. She could not. The silver letters spread across the step, bright against the red snow. One curve, then another, ancient wolf script, older than the palace stones. Toren went completely still. Halvia whispered, "Impossible." Eira stared at the letters, though she should not have been able to read them. But the snow wanted her to. The first word formed beneath her bleeding fingertips. Kaeroth. The wounded wolf shadow behind Toren staggered as if struck. The Alpha King's face emptied of all color. Eira looked from the silver name in the snow to the dying wolf behind him. Then the red snow whispered in a voice only she and the king seemed to hear. Name stolen, wolf starving. Toren stepped toward her, less like a king than a man approaching the edge of his own death. Behind Lord Halva, one of the war council rings on his finger cracked straight down the center. Eira saw it. So did Toren. And beneath her hands, the red snow began spelling a second name. The second name formed slowly, not because the snow struggled to remember, because something inside it was fighting not to be read. Eira's palm stayed trapped against the red steps as silver letters pushed through the frozen blood. The cold burned so deeply she could no longer feel her fingers, yet beneath that pain came a stranger ache, like hearing a wolf whimper from behind a locked door. Kaeroth. The name of the king's wolf glowed first, bright enough to stain the courtyard silver. Below it, the second name began to appear. Hull. Lord Helvia moved. Too fast. He descended the final steps and seized Eira by the back of her cloak, yanking her away from the snow. Pain tore through her hand as the silver letters broke beneath her palm. The courtyard gasped. The wounded wolf shadow behind Toren snarled, but the sound came out weak, ragged, almost breathless. Toren's sword was in his hand before anyone saw him draw it. Halvia froze with one fist still twisted in Eira's cloak. "Release her," the Alpha King said. The command was quiet. Snow stopped falling. Halvir let go. Eira collapsed onto one knee, clutching her burning hand against her chest. Red snow clung to her skin, but where it touched her, it turned silver and vanished like frost under moonlight. Halva bowed his head. "Majesty, the Omega was interfering with enemy blood curse residue." Toren did not look away from him. "The snow spoke my wolf's name." "Atrik," my wolf answered. "The battle poison has made your shadow unstable. You know this." For the first time, Eira heard it clearly. Fear. Not in the king. In Halvir. The largest ring on the counselor's hand had cracked, but he had hidden it beneath his thumb again. A thin line of red light leaked between his fingers. Eira stared at it. The red snow beneath her knees whispered, "Oath ring." Helvir's eyes snapped to her. She realized too late she had spoken the word aloud. The court heard. So did Toren. His gaze dropped to Halvir's hand. "Show me the ring." Halvar's face hardened. Majesty, this is not the place. It became the place when you dragged my palace servants into battlefield magic. She is not a servant, Halvar said, voice sharpening before he could polish it. She is an abandoned Omega with no house, no wolf, strength, and no right to read royal snow. The words struck Eira with old force. No house, no strength, no right. She lowered her eyes by instinct. Then the red snow beat once beneath the steps. Not like a heart, like a paw striking ice. Toren heard it. His wounded wolf shadow lifted its head another inch, though the movement seemed to cost it pain. The torn edges of its shape flickered toward Eira, and for one impossible moment she felt it trying to scent her through the cold. Not as a mate, not as a savior, as someone holding the door to its name. Toren stepped down to Eira. Can you read the rest? Halvar moved. Majesty. Toren turned. The courtyard remembered he was king. Halvar fell silent. Eira looked at the snow, then at the dying wolf shadow behind Toren. I do not know. It was the only honest answer. Toren studied her face, and the force of his attention made her throat tighten. He was not gentle. No king who had returned from a failed border battle with half his guard dead could be gentle. But he was listening, and Eira had not known how dangerous it would feel to be listened to by someone powerful. Try, he said. She reached for the red snow again. This time, Toren crouched beside her. The court inhaled as if scandal had become visible. An Alpha King did not kneel near an abandoned Omega. Not on blood-stained steps. Not before nobles, soldiers, counselors, and a wounded royal wolf shadow starving behind him. Toren did it anyway. Eira pressed her palm to the snow. The cold opened beneath her. A vision struck her hard enough to steal breath. The northern pass. Storm-dark pines. Dead wolves half buried in red drifts. Toren standing in battle smoke, his wolf shadow huge and black behind him, roaring as enemy blades broke against its shape. Then Halvar beside him, not fighting, kneeling in snow with his ring pressed into blood. Other counselors stood behind him, their hands over similar rings. They were not healing the king's wolf. They were writing over it. Eira saw the name Kaeroth pulled from the wolf shadow in silver threads, saw it buried beneath red snow while soldiers screamed nearby, saw Halvar whisper over the ring as the king staggered, never knowing the wound in his wolf had come from behind him, not from enemy steel. She tore her hand back with a cry. Toren caught her wrist before she fell sideways. His grip was firm, warm, and careful around the burned skin. What did you see? He asked. Eira could feel the whole court leaning toward her answer. Halvar's ring pulsed red. She should have been afraid of him. She was. But she was more afraid of the wolf shadow behind Toren, starving while everyone called it battle poison. Your wolf was not poisoned by the enemy, she whispered. Halvar's voice cracked like ice. Lies. Eira looked at Toren. Its name was taken at the pass. The courtyard went silent. Toren's face did not change. That made it worse. Only his wolf shadow reacted, lifting fully for one breath before pain dragged its head low again. The hollow edges of it stretched toward the red snow, toward the letters, toward Eira's bleeding palm. Toren released her wrist slowly. Who took it? He asked. The snow answered before she could. The unfinished second name burned brighter. Halvar. The war counselor's ring split wider. Red light burst from the crack, and inside the broken band, something silver writhed like a trapped piece of living breath. Kaeroth stole a name. The court screamed. Halvar ripped the ring from his finger and flung it into the snow. The red snow swallowed it. All the silver letters vanished. Eira lunged forward, but Halvar shouted, "Seize her!" Council guards rushed from the lower steps. Toren rose between them and Eira. His sword lifted, but his wolf shadow faltered behind him, thinning in the wind as the ring sank deeper into the blood-red snow. Halvar smiled then, pale and disparate. "Majesty," he said, "if you protect the Omega, the court will know the war has made you unfit to judge." Toren's hand tightened on the sword. Eira looked down at the red snow where the ring had disappeared. From beneath the surface came a faint, silver pulse. Then another name began to whisper. Not Kaeroth. Heirs. Eira's name rose from beneath the red snow like a secret that had been waiting longer than she had been alive. Not in silver letters yet. In sound. A whisper first, thin as wind through a keyhole. Ada. Then again, deeper under the palace steps. Eira Venn. The courtyard went still around her. Even Lord Halvir stopped smiling. Eira's hand hovered above the snow, trembling. The pulse beneath the red crust was not like Kaeroth's starving name. It did not feel wounded in the same way. It felt hidden, buried under years of ash, cold, and people calling her too little to matter. Toren heard it. His eyes moved from the snow to her face. Why does the blood know your name? I do not know, she whispered. That was the truth. It was also the worst answer to give before a frightened court. Halvor seized it. There. You hear it yourself. Enemy snow speaks to her. She did not reveal the curse, Majesty. She belongs to it. The council guards edged forward again. Toren did not lower his sword, but his wolf shadow flickered behind him, thinner than before. The loss of the ring had hurt it. Whatever piece of Kaeroth's name writhed inside that broken band was sinking deeper into the red snow with every passing breath. Eira could feel it. A name drowning. A wolf starving. A king being hollowed in front of people who would call it weakness before they called it murder. She pressed her burned palm to the step again. Toren moved as if to stop her, then held himself still. The snow opened. Pain shot through Eira's hand, but this time the vision came slower, sharper, as if the red snow wanted no misunderstanding. She saw the northern pass again, but not the battle. Before it, a hidden council tent beneath black pines. Halvor standing with 3 war counselors around a basin of red snow that had not yet fallen from the sky. Each man wore a ring. Each ring held a single wolf name stolen from Old Oath archives. Then she saw herself as a child, 9 years old, kneeling in a winter road beside her mother's empty cloak. A woman's blood on the snow. A man's boot beside it. Halvor's younger face looking down. She heard the names. He said in the vision, "Leave her. Omegas are useful when no one believes them." Eira's breath broke. Her mother had not disappeared. Her mother had been found and abandoned. The vision shifted once more. Eira's mother, pale and bleeding in the snow, pressed her fingers into red ice and whispered something over and over. Not a prayer, a name. Eira could not hear it. The snow could. The vision shattered. Eira pulled back with a gasp, clutching her hand to her chest. Her whole body shook so hard the courtyard blurred. Toren caught her before she fell. This time, he did not merely steady her wrist. His hand closed around her arm and held her upright before the court could watch her collapse. The noble saw. So did Halvor. Something like fury moved through the war counselor's face before he smoothed it away. "What did you see?" Toren asked. Eira tried to speak. No sound came. The old wound had opened too quickly. For years, she had imagined her mother vanishing into winter because poor women vanished. Because Omega women were taken by cold, hunger, wolves, men, roads, and no one asked which one. Now the snow had shown her a face, a boot, a choice. Halvor had known. "He left my mother in the snow," she said. Halvor's mouth tightened. A grieving Omega sees whatever feeds her bitterness. Eira looked at him then. Really looked. The rings on his fingers were not just ornaments. Each one had a tiny inner seam glowing faintly red, as if something alive had been locked inside and worn as authority. "You knew what she was," Eira whispered. Halvor's eyes went cold. That was answer enough. Toren's voice dropped. What was her mother? The red snow answered. Letters spread under Eira's knees, not one line now but many, curling across the steps in ancient wolf script. Silver bled through red. Names appeared and vanished. Some belonged to wolves. Some to women. some to battlefields where truth had been buried under snow and called victory. Then one title formed clear enough for every watching noble to see. Snow named Blood. A murmur broke through the courtyard. Halvar raised his hand. Do not read it. Too late. Toren had already read it. Ada had, too. The word struck something deep in her, not with pride, but with terror. Snow name. She had heard the phrase only once, from an old washerwoman who said some winter bloodlines could read what snow refused to rot. True names, false oaths. Wolves poisoned by lies. Then the washerwoman had crossed herself and begged Eira to forget the words. Halvar stepped down another stair. Majesty, snow. Name blood was outlawed because it could unmake alpha oaths. It hears enemy tricks and calls them truth. No, Eira said softly. The courtyard turned toward her. She was still shaking, still half frozen, still an abandoned Omega in a grey cloak with blood-red snow soaking her knees. But the snow beneath her hand was no longer silent. It hears names buried under lies, she said. The wounded wolf shadow behind Toren lifted its head. For the first time, its hollow eyes fixed on her. Not on the court, not on Halvir, on Eira. A sound came from it, so weak it nearly disappeared under the wind. Kaeroth, Tornstagel. Eira saw pain cross his face before he buried it. His wolf had spoken from the edge of starvation, and the name had struck the king like breath returning to a drowning man. Halvar saw the danger. He turned to the guards. Chain the Omega. Toren's sword rose higher. No. Halvar's voice hardened. Then you force the council to act for the realm. A terrible silence followed. Several war councillors stepped from the crowd. Eira saw the rings on their hands. Each one pulsed red. The snow whispered beneath her. Name cages. Toren looked at them. You brought oath. Rings into my courtyard. Halvar smiled sadly, as if betrayal grieved him. We brought safeguards against a king whose wolf was compromised by war. My wolf was starved by you. Your wolf was too powerful to govern, Halvar said. Kaeroth would have dragged Ravengard into a blood feud no council could survive. We did what was necessary after the Northern Pass. The battle was 3 days ago. Halvir's smile vanished. Eira heard the snow before the words made sense. Not 3 days, 3 years. She looked at Toren. This did not begin at the pass. The red snow across the steppes cracked open in a long silver line. Beneath it lay older snow. Layer after layer of frozen blood, packed under the palace stone like winter memory. The courtyard gasped as the steps themselves began to melt from within, revealing names hidden below the surface for years. Not only Kaeroth, dozens of wolf names. Hundreds. Names of royal wolves, border wolves, Omega wolves, enemy wolves, all tangled beneath false alpha oaths. The dying wolf shadow behind Toren rose fully for one impossible breath, then collapsed to its knees. Eira cried out. Toren turned toward it, and for the first time the Alpha King forgot the court entirely. Halvir lifted his cracked ring, red light burning through his fingers. Seize her now, or the king dies before reaching the throne. The council guards lunged. Eira placed both palms into the melting red snow. Silver light exploded across the palace steps, and beneath Frosthelm Keep, every stolen wolf name began to howl. The howl beneath Frosthelm Keep did not sound like one wolf. It sounded like winter remembering every throat it had been forced to bury. The palace steps shook under Eira's palms. Red snow melted in long silver veins, running between the stones and down into cracks where old blood had frozen for years. The council guards rushing toward her stopped as names began to glow beneath their boots. Wolf names. Some were bright enough to cut the eye. Some flickered weakly, almost lost beneath layers of red oath magic. Eira felt them pressing upward, not as a storm, but as prisoners finding the first crack in a locked door. Toren's wolf shadow collapsed behind him. The sight silenced the court more completely than any command could have. Kaeroth, The royal wolf, whose name had frightened enemies across the north, knelt in the snow like a starving beast, its hollow eyes fixed on the silver letters beneath Eira's hands. Kaeroth, the true name, stretched toward him, but the red snow held it back. Lord Halvar raised his cracked ring. Blood-red light pulsed from the split band, and the name twisted in the snow as if a hook had caught it. "Do not let her finish," Halvir ordered. Two war counselors stepped forward, each wearing rings that glowed with the same red oath light. They pressed their hands together. The air sharpened with the smell of iron and old battlefield smoke. Eira tried to pull Kaeroth's name free. Pain shot through both arms. A vision slammed into her. She saw the northern pass 3 years before, not 3 days. Snow fell over black pines. Toren stood younger and unwounded before a surrendering border Alpha. Kaeroth's shadow towered behind him, fierce but restrained. The enemy Alpha lowered his throat. "The border pack accepts peace," the man said. Toren's younger face hardened with grief, but not cruelty. "Then let the war end." Kaeroth lowered his head in agreement. The vision shifted. Later that night, Halvar knelt in red snow with his ring pressed into the blood of the battlefield. 3 counselors stood behind him. "A king whose wolf chooses mercy can choose against us," Halvar whispered. "Take the true name. Leave him the hunger. Let the world believe war poisoned him." The ring opened like a red eye. Silver threads tore from Kaeroth's chest. The wolf roared. Toren staggered in the vision, never knowing the wound had come from behind him. Eira gasped back into the courtyard. Toren was staring at her. "What did you see?" he demanded. Halvir's ring burned brighter. Eira's voice shook, but the snow carried it. They did not starve Kaeroth because he wanted war. The courtyard held its breath. They starved him because he accepted peace. The red snow answered. A silver image rose above the steps for every noble to see. Toren at the pass, choosing surrender instead of slaughter. Halvar kneeling afterward, stealing Kaeroth's name into the oath. Ring. The royal wolf collapsing while the council called it enemy poison. The court erupted. Halvar shouted over them. "Enemy namecraft. The Omega is twisting blood memory." But the ring on his hand cracked wider. Inside it, something silver writhed. Kaeroth's stolen armor. Toren turned slowly toward his war counselor. "You made me believe my wolf was dying from battle poison." Halvar's face tightened. "Your wolf made you weak. My wolf chose peace, and peace would have broken the council's hold on the border," Halvar snapped. The words escaped too cleanly. Everyone heard them. Eira pressed both bleeding palms deeper into the snow. More names flickered beneath the steps, not only Kaeroth's. Names of border wolves, palace wolves, scouts accused of betrayal. Messengers who had carried surrender offers and died with their true names buried under red snow. The red snow was not enemy blood. It was a record, a frozen record of every wolf name the council had hidden to keep war alive. Toren's face changed as he understood the scale of it. Rage came first, then grief, then something colder than both. Halvar saw the shift and moved fast. He tore the cracked ring from his finger and flung it into the red snow. The name vanished beneath the surface. Kaeroth's shadow jerked as if struck through the heart. Toren stumbled. Eira lunged forward, but Halvir raised his hand. "Seize her!" Council guards rushed the steps. Toren lifted his sword and stepped between them and Eira, but Kaeroth thinned behind him, dragged toward collapse by the sinking name. Halvir smiled, pale and desperate. "Majesty, if you protect the Omega now, the court will know the war has made you unfit to judge." Eira looked down at the snow where the ring had disappeared. A faint silver pulse beat under the red crust. Then another. Not only Kaeroth. The buried names were still there, waiting. The snow whispered against her blood. Read by witness, not rage. For one breath, Eira heard her mother's voice beneath the winter. Her mother, lost on a red road years ago. Her mother, who had once told her, "If the snow speaks, listen before you answer." Eira lifted her head. I will not tear the name out, she whispered. Halvir's smile faltered. Eira looked at Toren. His face was pale with pain, his wolf shadow kneeling behind him, his sword still raised for a girl the court had ordered to scrub blood from stone. Your Majesty, she said, voice breaking only once, do you consent to hear what was buried? The question struck the courtyard like a bell. Toren looked at Kaeroth, then at the snow, then at Eira. Yes, he said. The red snow split open. Silver light burst upward from beneath the palace steps. Halvar's ring rose from the blood crust, cracked and shaking, with Kaeroth's name burning inside it. Eira placed both hands around the ring. The cold bit into her bones. Kaeroth, she said. Wolf of Alpha King Toren Vale. Name stolen under false war oath. Hunger blamed on battle. Mercy buried as weakness. Witnessed by snow. The ring shattered. Kaeroth's name flew free. Silver light slammed into the dying wolf shadow behind Toren. The great black wolf threw back its head and howled. Not with hunger this time, but recognition. Toren dropped to one knee as the name returned through him. The court cried out. Halvar staggered back, horror finally breaking through his control. Kaeroth rose. Still scarred, still thin, but no longer hollow. The royal wolf turned its silver-burning eyes on Halvar. Toren looked up from the snow, breathing hard, one hand braced against Kaeroth's shoulder. His voice was low. Now we read the rest. Now we read the rest. Toren's words moved across the courtyard like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. No one cheered when Kaeroth rose. The royal wolf shadow stood behind him, enormous and black, its true name burning in silver across its chest, but the shape remained scarred by hunger. Its ribs still showed through darkness. Its throat still carried the pale marks where false oaths had starved it for years. A name returned did not erase the wound. It only made healing possible. Eira understood that as she knelt in the red snow, both palms bleeding faint silver from where the shattered ring had cut her skin. Beneath her, the palace steps still glowed with buried wolf names. Some pushed upward eagerly, desperate to be read. Others flickered weakly, afraid of the light. Read by witness, not rage. Her mother's remembered warning steadied her. Toren saw her sway. Can you continue? Halvar gave a breathless laugh from the steps above. She has already continued too far. Kaeroth growled. The sound rolled through the courtyard, but Toren lifted one hand and the wolf stopped. That stopped the court too. For years, they had feared Kaeroth as a beast of royal hunger. Now they watched it obey restraint, not because it was chained, because its name had returned enough for it to choose. Eira looked at Toren. Only one layer tonight. His eyes narrowed in understanding. Why? If I read all of it at once, the court will drown in grief and call it curse by morning. The snow brightened beneath her hand, as if approving. Toren turned to the watching nobles. You heard her. One layer. The rest will be witnessed under law, not panic. Halvar's face tightened. You would let an abandoned Omega decide how much truth your court may hear? No, Toren said. I would let the only person who can read the snow tell us how not to turn truth into another massacre. The words struck Eira harder than she expected. Not praise, trust. And trust, given in public by a king, was more dangerous than protection. She lowered her hand into the red snow again. This time, she did not force it. She listened. The names beneath the steps shifted, and one rose brighter than the others. Not the oldest, not the loudest. The one nearest Kaeroth's stolen name. Orinmalk. A silver line unfolded beside it. Tharun. Eira closed her eyes. A vision opened above the steps. A border scout in a torn grey cloak rode through falling snow with a white surrender ribbon tied around his wrist. His wolf, Tharun, ran beside him, lean and dark, ears flattened against the wind. He carried a message sealed with both packs' marks. An offer to end the northern raids before winter swallowed the villages. Then the vision shifted. Orinmalk reached Frosthelm's outer road. Council arrows struck him before the palace gates. He fell from his horse into red snow. Tharun tried to drag him toward the trees, but a war counselor pressed an oath ring into the wolf's mouth and took its name. By dawn, the court record called Oren a traitor who had carried poison into Ravengard. Above the vision, the silver letters burned clear. Peace messenger, killed before witness. A woman screamed from the lower courtyard. She pushed through the crowd, hair half unbound beneath a widow's hood. Oren was my brother. The guards tried to stop her. Toren's voice cut through them. Let her pass. She stumbled forward and dropped to her knees at the glowing name. They told us he betrayed the king. Eira's throat tightened. He carried peace. The widow pressed both hands over the letters, sobbing. The name Tharun rose from the snow and circled her once before fading into silver light. Returned. The courtyard was silent except for her grief. Then, another name brightened. Then another. Eira lifted her hand. No more visions unless witnessed by blood or kin. The snow obeyed. Only 3 more names rose enough to show brief truths. A healer accused of aiding the enemy after saving children from both packs. A young soldier branded coward for refusing to kill surrendering wolves. A border mother executed as spy because she had hidden wounded pups beneath her floor. Each time, someone in the crowd recognized the name. Each time, the snow released only enough truth to begin, not enough to burn the whole kingdom in one night. Halvir saw the danger of that restraint. His lies could survive chaos. He had built his power on it. But careful witness would kill him slowly, name by name, record by record, until even his allies would not know which story could still protect them. You are letting her make herself holy, he snapped. Eira looked at him. No, I am making it harder for you to call grief madness. For the first time, Halvar had no answer. Toren stepped onto the lowest step, beside the glowing names. Bring the war ledger. A guard hesitated. Kaeroth looked at him. The guard ran. Halvir's face pallid. The ledger arrived bound in black wolfhide and sealed with 3 silver clasps. The moment it touched the red snow, the clasps opened by themselves. Pages turned in the wind. Silver letters rose from the parchment, matching the names the snow had revealed. Oren Malk, Tharun, peace messenger, false charge, treason, council benefit, continued war authority. The courtyard inhaled as one body. The next entry rose, then the next. Every truth Eira had read had been recorded, not hidden from the council, hidden by it. Toren stared at the ledger as if it were a corpse he had mistaken for law. You wrote it down. Halvir's mouth worked once. No sound came. You recorded the lies, Toren said. Halvar lifted his chin with the last of his pride. A realm cannot be governed without memory. Eira looked at the red snow, the ledger, the widow still bent over her brother's name. No, she said. You did not keep memory. You kept receipts. A murmur moved through the court. Bitter, shocked, awake. Toren closed the ledger with one hand. Lord Halvar, by witness of snow, ledger, wolf, name, and crown, you are stripped of command. Halvar laughed sharply. You need the council to hold the border. I needed truth sooner. The border packs will come for repayment. Then I will meet them with names. Halvar's eyes burned. Names do not stop armies. Kaeroth stepped forward, silver name glowing in his chest. Toren's voice dropped. No, but lies start them. The snow beneath Halvir's boots cracked. For one moment, panic flashed across his face. Then his expression hardened. He reached beneath his cloak. Eira saw the movement. Toren. Halvar pulled out a final ring, larger than the others, black iron threaded with red frost. At its center pulsed one dim, ancient name. Kaeroth snarled. The snow recoiled. Halvar smiled with a man's last cruelty. If I fall, I do not fall alone. He threw the ring into the deepest red snow at the base of the steps. The courtyard went black. Every silver name vanished. Then, from beneath Frosthelm Keep, something enormous opened its eyes. The thing beneath Frosthelm keep opened its eyes before it rose. Two red lights burned under the palace steps, deep below the layers of snow, blood, stone, and buried names. The courtyard froze around them, not from cold, from the oldest fear in Ravengard waking under its own throne. Eira felt the red snow pull away from her hands, not rejecting her, remembering something too large for one wounded girl to hold alone. Kaeroth stepped in front of Toren, true name glowing silver in his chest. The royal wolf shadow was no longer hollow, but it was still wounded. The hunger Halvar had left inside him had carved too deeply to vanish in one night. From beneath the steps came a growl that made the torn wolf banners tremble. Halvar stood at the edge of the red snow, pale but smiling. The final ring had vanished into the dark beneath the courtyard. Whatever name it carried had not been kept in a council ledger. It had been kept below everything. Toren's voice was low. "What did you release?" Halvar laughed once. "The first truth your house ever buried." The palace steps cracked. Black frost split the stone from bottom to top. Red snow rose in spirals, no longer flat against the ground but climbing like smoke. Then a wolf shadow larger than the gates forced its head through the broken steps. It was not alive. It was not dead. It was old Conquest given teeth. Its fur was made of black winter and dried blood. Chains of ancient Alpha script hung from its throat, and each link glowed with the first oath sworn when Housevale took Frosthelm from the northern packs. The nobles screamed. Some ran. Others dropped to their knees. The wolf climbed fully into the courtyard, huge enough that its shoulders blocked the lower gate, its red eyes fixed on Toren. The snow showed the memory without Eira touching it. A battlefield centuries ago. The first Vale Alpha standing on a frozen hill, a northern wolf kneeling beneath him, not defeated in rage, but surrendered under truce. Its pack had lowered their throats. The war was over. Then the first Vale Alpha spoke a false oath. He took the wolf's true name and chained it beneath the hill so every future conquest oath would draw strength from its submission. That hill became Frosthelm Keep. Eira heard the name buried inside the chains. Faint, almost erased. Rave, the first conquered wolf. Toren saw the memory too. His face went white, not with fear of the beast, with recognition of the throne beneath his feet. Halvar's voice rose above the chaos. "There, Majesty, the Omega wanted truth. Let the first conquered wolf judge whether mercy can hold a kingdom." Ravelungast. Kaeroth met it halfway. The collision shook the courtyard so hard stone wolves cracked along the palace railings. Black frost and red snow burst outward. Kaeroth drove its claws into the steps, holding Raven back. But the older wolf was too massive, too full of centuries of imprisonment. Toren staggered as pain struck through the bond. Eira ran toward him, but the red snow whipped around her ankles. The first snow-name wolf appeared beside her, pale and thin, its broken oath collar gone. Her mother's voice moved through the snow. "Do not command it, name it." Eira dropped to her knees. The red storm clawed at her face. The court blurred. Toren and Kaeroth became shapes against the black frost. Halvar shouted something, but she stopped listening to him. She listened beneath him, beneath conquest, beneath rage, beneath the false oath wrapped around the giant wolf's throat. "Raven," she whispered. The conquered wolf froze. Kaeroth held it there, teeth bared but not biting. Eira lifted her bleeding palm. "Raven, first wolf of the northern hill, yielded under truce, name stolen by the first Vale Alpha, chained beneath Frosthelm to feed conquest oaths." The red chains around Raven's throat cracked. Every noble in the courtyard heard the name. Toren stepped forward, though pain bent him almost double. Kaeroth stayed between him and Raven, but the king placed one hand on his wolf's shoulder and lowered his sword with the other. Halvar's smile vanished. "Do not kneel to a conquered beast." Toren did not look at him. He looked at Raven. Then the Alpha King of Ravengard lowered himself to one knee in the red snow. The court went silent. "My house built its keep over your stolen name," Toren said. His voice was rough, but it did not break. I cannot undo the centuries you carried that chain, but I can stop calling your prison my right. Riven's red eyes flickered. Eira felt the archive waiting. This was the moment Halvar had wanted to turn into destruction. If Raven attacked, he could call truth a curse. If Toren struck back, the old conquest oath would tighten again. Instead, Eira pressed both palms to the snow. Raven is witnessed, she said. Toren repeated, Raven is witnessed. For one breath, no one else spoke. Then a soldier near the gate whispered it. Eira Venn is witnessed. A servant repeated it. Then a widow. Then another guard. The words moved through the courtyard until the name became too living to bury again. Riven threw back its head and howled. The howl shattered the ancient Alpha script chains around its throat. Red snow turned white beneath its paws. Not clean, not erased. White with silver letters threaded through it, so the truth remained visible. Halvar stumbled backward. If conquest oaths break, the border pacts will rise. Toren rose slowly. Then I will meet them with names instead of lies. You will lose half the realm. Then half the realm was held by theft. Eira lowered its massive head toward Eira. Cold breath touched her brow. A mark bloomed beneath her skin, a snowflake shaped like a wolf's open eye. Snow name Heir. Eira gasped as the mark burned bright, then settled into her blood like winter finding its rightful season. Halvar lunged for the broken ring shard in the snow. Kaeroth's paw came down over it. The royal wolf did not kill him. It only looked at him. Mercy with teeth. Halvar sank to his knees. Above the palace steps, silver words spread through the snow for all the court to read. The war was fed by stolen names. Toren turned to his guards. Take Lord Halvar. The guards hesitated only once. Then they seized him. Halvar fought, but without his rings the snow did not answer him. The red light was gone from his hands. His power had become only a man's panic wrapped in a silver wolf cloak. Eira swayed. Toren caught her before she fell, one arm firm around her shoulders. This time, no one laughed. No one called her slow. No one told her to keep scrubbing. The abandoned Omega, who had been sent to wash blood from the steps, now stood before a white courtyard filled with silver names, marked by the snow itself as the last heir of a bloodline the council had tried to bury. Riven faded into the palace stone, no longer chained beneath it, but remembered inside it. Kaeroth stood beside Toren, scarred and breathing. And beneath Frosthelm Keep, the archive opened not as a grave, but as a record waiting to be answered. Halvar was dragged across the white snow he had tried to keep red. The court watched in a silence sharper than fear. Only minutes ago, he had stood above Eira and ordered her to scrub blood from stone. Now his silver wolf cloak trailed behind him, soaked through with melted red snow, while the guards he once commanded held his arms. The rings that had made his voice heavier than law lay shattered across the steps. Black metal and red frost scattered like dead beetles in winter light. Kaeroth stood behind Toren. The royal wolf shadow was still thin from years of starvation, but its chest burned with its returned name. Each breath it took made silver letters ripple through the snow beneath Frosthelm Keep. The court could no longer pretend the wolf was poisoned by enemy magic. They had seen Halvar's ring break. They had watched Kaeroth's name return. They had heard Riven witnessed before the ancient conquest chains shattered. Eira stood beside the king, though her legs trembled beneath her grey cloak. The snowflake mark shaped like a wolf's open eye burned beneath her skin. It did not feel like victory. It felt like 1,000 doors waiting for her hand. Toren saw her sway. You are done for tonight, he said quietly. Halvar laughed through blood on his lip. Listen to him. The king has found himself an Omega oracle and already hides her from hard truth. Toren turned. The courtyard seemed to turn with him. No, he said. I am refusing to use her the way you used the snow. The words landed harder than a blow. Eira looked at him before she could stop herself. All her life, Powerful people had found uses for her, cleaning, carrying, kneeling, enduring. Even pity had always come with a task, but Toren's voice held no bargain. He was not asking her to save his throne. He was stopping the court from reaching for a gift like another bucket. Halvar's eyes narrowed. Then what will you do, Majesty? Rule blind? Refuse the only bloodline that can read what we buried? Toren looked toward the steps. Silver names still shimmered beneath the white snow, visible where the dawn touched them. Not all readable, not all ready. The archive beneath Frosthelm had opened, but it had not emptied. We will read them under witness, Toren said. One name at a time, one battle at a time, one lie at a time. A murmur moved through the nobles. Panic, mostly. A northern lord stepped forward, face pale beneath his fur hood. Majesty, if every border oath is reopened, alliances will collapse. Then they were not alliances, Toren said. They were cages. Another noblewoman clutched her throat. And if the border pacts demand blood? Toren's gaze moved briefly to Raven's fading mark in the stone, then to Kaeroth. Then we answer with names before we answer with blades. Halvar spat into the snow. That answer will get soldiers killed. Eira's hand tightened at her side. Toren's jaw hardened, but Eira spoke first. How many soldiers died because you needed war to stay useful? The courtyard went still. Halvar looked at her as if she had slapped him. The snow under his knees glowed. A ledger of silver script rose from the white surface, not all of it, only the first page. The court saw names of peace messengers killed before reaching the gates. Surrender offers rewritten as insults. Border mothers accused of hiding enemy pups. Scouts called traitors after reporting that the enemy pack wanted truce. Then, the final line burned brighter. Council benefit, emergency war authority preserved. The silence that followed was not empty. It was understanding beginning to rot through loyalty. One of the younger guards holding Halvar loosened his grip as if suddenly disgusted by the man in his hands. Halvar felt it. His voice turned cold. All of you enjoyed the safety those choices bought. No, a widow called from the lower courtyard. Her voice shook, but she did not step back. You sold us fear and called it safety. Another voice rose. My son died at Eira Venn. Another. My mate was branded deserter. Another. My brother carried a white flag. The names beneath the snow pulsed, but Eira lifted one hand. Not all at once, she whispered. The snow obeyed. That frightened the court more than if it had stormed. Eira felt their eyes sharpen on her. Awe could become hunger quickly. Fear could become worship. Both were dangerous. Toren stepped half a pace in front of her, not hiding her, not claiming her, only making it clear that anyone who reached for her would have to pass the king first. Eira Venn is not crown property, he said. She will not be commanded to read for noble revenge, border claims, or council trials. If she chooses to witness, it will be by her will. Halvar smiled bitterly. A king asking permission from an Omega. A king learning what consent sounds like, Toren answered. The words made Kaeroth lift its head. Somewhere beneath the stone, the archive answered with a low silver pulse. Halvar's face changed then. Not rage, defeat approaching. He looked at Eira. Your mother had the same foolish restraint. Eira went cold. Toren's eyes cut to him. Halvar continued, because cruel men often chose cruelty when power failed. Eira Venn could have exposed half the council after White Hollow. Instead, she tried to witness properly. She wanted names returned carefully, lawfully, kindly. He laughed once. So we left her in the snow before she could finish. Eira could not breathe. The snow beneath her feet brightened. A name formed between her and Halvar. Eira Venn, not buried now, clear, mother. Snow name witness. Left in red snow by order of the War Council. Eira sank to her knees before the name. For a moment, the courtyard vanished. There was only the winter road from her childhood, her mother's missing cloak, and the years of wondering whether she had been abandoned because she was not worth returning to. A hand touched her shoulder. Not torrents, cold as snowfall, gentle as memory. Eira looked up. Eira Venn stood beside her in pale winter light, not fully alive, not fully gone. Her dark hair moved in a wind no one else felt, and the wound at her side glowed silver instead of red. The court gasped. Eira's lips parted. "Mother," Cena smiled sadly. "Little one." The words broke something open inside her. Toren bowed his head to the winter memory woman, and that nearly undid Eira completely. Halvir recoiled. "No." Senna turned toward him. "Yes." The snow carried her voice through the courtyard. "You left me because I read one name. My daughter has read the king's wolf, the first conquered wolf, and the lies you fed to war." Halvir struggled against the guards. "You are dead." "I am witnessed," Senna said. The distinction silenced him. Senna placed her hand over Eira's snow mark. "Do not let them make your gift another battlefield." Eira's tears froze on her cheeks. "I don't know how to carry all of it." "You do not carry all of it tonight." The same truth Toren had spoken. This time, Eira believed it. Senna looked at Toren. "Give her a life, not a duty shaped like a cage." Toren's voice was low. "I swear it." Sena's form began to thin. "No," Eira whispered. Her mother touched her cheek, cold and soft. "You were never abandoned by me." Then Eira Venn dissolved into silver snow, leaving her name bright and whole beneath Eira's knees. Toren faced the court. "The war council is dissolved," he said. "Halvar and every oath ring bearer will be held for witness trials. Every record sealed under red snow will be reopened. Every border pack named in these lies will receive the truth from my hand." Halvar sagged between the guards. For the first time, no one rushed to defend him. Dawn touched the upper towers of Frosthelm Keep. The snow on the steps remained white, threaded with silver names. Eira rose slowly. Toren offered his hand. He did not take hers. He waited. And before the entire court, the abandoned Omega chose to place her blood-marked fingers in the Alpha King's palm. The court saw her choose. That mattered more than Toren taking her hand would have. Eira's fingers were cold, blood-marked, and trembling inside the Alpha King's palm, but he did not close his grip until she did first. The difference was small enough for frightened nobles to miss. The snow did not miss it. Kaeroth did not miss it. The silver names beneath the palace steps brightened softly, as if even winter understood the shape of consent. Halvar was dragged past them toward the lower gate. For one moment, his eyes locked on Eira. "You think he will not use you?" he hissed. "Kings use what saves them. That is how thrones survive." Toren's hand tightened not around Eira, but around the hilt of his sword. Eira answered before he could. "Then he will have to learn another way to survive." The snow carried her words. A few servants near the back of the courtyard lifted their heads. Halvar's mouth twisted, but the guards pulled him away. The other war councillors followed, stripped of their rings, their hands bound in plain iron instead of oath metal. No one cheered. The courtyard was too full of exposed grief for celebration. Toren turned to the nobles. "No sentence will be passed tonight." A murmur rose immediately. He raised his voice. "Not because they deserve delay, because the truth does. Every trial will be witnessed by name, record, and those harmed. No more executions built on panic. No more histories written before the dead are heard." Eira looked at him. This was not the kind of justice the court expected from an Alpha King. They wanted blood because blood was simple. Toren was choosing something slower, heavier, and harder to turn into a war chant. Kaeroth stood behind him, still scarred, still thin, but steady. The returned name burned in the wolf shadow's chest. When a northern lord stepped forward angrily, Kaeroth's ears lifted, and the man stopped mid-breath. "Majesty," the lord said more carefully, "the border packs will see this as confession." "It is confession," Toren said. The answer cut the air clean. "If House Vale buried names, House Vale will answer. If the council forged wars in my father's time, they will answer." If my own command repeated lies I did not question, I will answer too." The noble looked horrified. "You would weaken the crown before enemies?" Toren glanced at the white steps threaded with silver names. The crown was weakest when it needed stolen names to stand. Eira felt the snow pulse beneath her feet. Not approval exactly. Recognition. A messenger was sent to open the old record chambers. Soldiers were ordered to seal the council wing without bloodshed. The wounded from the northern pass were brought inside. Servants who had been clearing battle cloaks were called to witness, not scrub. For the first time in Frosthelm's memory, Omegas were not ordered away from royal truth. Eira stood through it all until exhaustion blurred the edges of the courtyard. Toren noticed. Of course he did. "You need warmth," he said quietly. "I need to know the names will not be buried again." "They will not. Do not promise quickly." His eyes shifted to hers. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. Toren lowered his voice. "Then come see where I will put them." He led her up the steps she had been forced to clean. The red snow was gone now, turned white and silver beneath their feet. Each step carried names under the surface, visible only when moonlight struck at an angle. Not hidden, protected, waiting. Inside Frosthelm Keep, the entry hall was colder than the courtyard. Black stone pillars rose into darkness. Torn wolf banners hung above the hearths. The castle smelled of smoke, iron, wet fur, and grief. Toren stopped before the old war wall. It was covered with carved victories. White Hollow, Redfin, Northwatch, Mercy Road. Each name had been cut into black stone and filled with silver paint, honored as battles won by Vale strength. Eira looked at them and felt the snow stir under her skin. "These were lies," she said. "Some, maybe all." He took a dagger from his belt. For one tense breath, she thought he meant to carve the truth himself. Instead, he handed it to her hilt first. "No," Eira said immediately. "Torn been still. I will not be the hand that rewrites your wall because you feel guilt tonight." His expression changed, not offended, but struck. She stepped closer to the carved names. "Bring the widows, the scouts, the border witnesses. Bring the packs you called enemy. Bring records. Bring snow from the fields where the blood fell. Then the wall can be corrected." Toren looked at the dagger in his hand. Then he sheathed it. "You are right." The words were simple. The effect was not. Eira had known men who would rather kill than be corrected by an Omega in a hall full of guards. Toren only looked at the war wall, as if seeing the first true shape of it. "I wanted to do one clean thing," he admitted. "Clean things are what they asked me to do with blood." He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the king was there again, but changed by the man beneath him. "They're not clean." "True." A soft sound came from the hall entrance. Eira turned. Kaeroth stood there, too large for the doorway and yet somehow shadow-thin. The royal wolf's silver name pulsed faintly. Its gaze rested not on Toren, but on Eira. She should have been afraid. She was, but the fear did not tell her to run. Kaeroth lowered its head. "Not a bow." An acknowledgement. Eira's throat tightened. Toren watched in silence. He did not explain the wolf to her. He did not claim the moment for himself. Beyond the hall windows, dawn gathered over Frosthelm's towers. The courtyard below remained crowded with frightened nobles and waiting names. The work ahead stretched wider than any battlefield. Then the snow outside whispered. Not urgently this time. Carefully. One more name surfaced on the lowest step. Not a wolf name. A human one. Eira Venn. Beside it, silver letters slowly formed. Not abandoned. Eira stared through the window until her vision blurred. Toren stood beside her, close enough to steady her if she asked, far enough not to take the grief from her hands. "What does it say?" he asked softly. Eira swallowed. For the first time in years, the answer did not wound her. "It says I was not abandoned." The snow below brightened once, then held the words in silence. By noon, Frosthelm Keep no longer knew how to pretend. The courtyard had been cleared of nobles, but not of names. Silver script still shimmered beneath the snow on the palace steps, quiet as breath under ice. Guards stood watch around them now, not to keep servants away, but to keep frightened lords from trying to scrape truth out of the stone before it could testify. Inside the great hall, the war wall waited. Toren had ordered the old victory banners lowered. Without them, the black stone looked bare and severe, its carved battle names exposed like bones after cloth had been pulled from a corpse. White Hollow, Red Venn, Northwatch, Mercy Road. Every title had once been spoken with pride. Now each one sounded like a question. Eira stood before the wall in a clean grey cloak someone had brought her from the servant stores. Her hands had been wrapped, but silver light still leaked through the linen where the red snow had cut her palms. The snowflake mark shaped like a wolf's open eye rested beneath her skin, cold and awake. She had slept for less than an hour. The names had not slept at all. Toren stood beside her without his crown. Kaeroth lay near the hearth like a shadow too large for the firelight, his head resting on his paws, his silver name still glowing faintly through the dark fur of his chest. The wolf was alive in the way a starved thing is alive after being given water, not healed, not whole, but no longer dying in silence. Around the hall gathered the first witnesses. Not the whole court. Eira had insisted. A widow for Oren Malk. 2 northern guards who had survived the most recent pass. A border envoy kept under suspicion for years. 3 servants who remembered carrying sealed letters that never reached the throne. Lady Avara, an old noblewoman whose son had vanished during the Mercy Road talks. And, in iron chains before the war wall, Halvar. He looked colder without his rings. That did not make him weaker in the way Eira wanted. Men like Halvar had built power before they had tools. The rings had only made his lies louder. Toren faced the gathered witnesses. Today we open one battle. A noble captain frowned. Only one? One, Toren said. Because if we open every wound at once, men like Halvar will call the bleeding proof that truth kills. Halvar smiled faintly. Careful, Majesty. You are beginning to sound like someone who fears truth. Eira looked at him. No. He is beginning to understand. Wait. The old noblewoman, Lady Avara, studied Eira with red-rimmed eyes. Which battle? Eira touched the wall. The snow mark burned under her skin. For a moment, she heard too many names crowd the stone, White Hollow begging first, Red Venn pushing harder, Mercy Road whispering through grief that felt almost human. She closed her eyes, read carefully. Her mother's voice was memory now, but memory could still guide a hand. Eira opened her eyes. Mercy Road. Lady Avara made a small sound. Her son had died there. Or so the record said. Toren nodded once. Mercy Road. The carved battle name brightened. Frost spread from Eira's fingers across the black stone, turning the silver paint inside the letters pale and raw. Then the wall opened into vision. A narrow winter road appeared, lined with dead pines and broken shrine stones. 2 packs approached beneath white flags. One carried wounded children. The other carried surrender blades wrapped in cloth. At the center rode Lady Avara's son, Lord Kaedron, young and nervous, but determined. He was sent to accept surrender. Eira whispered. Lady Avara covered her mouth. The vision continued. Kaedron dismounted and gave water to an enemy child. His wolf, Rusk, stood beside him, tense but calm. From the trees, a council archer lifted a bow. Halvir did not shoot. That almost made it worse. He stood behind the archer and gave the order with 2 fingers. The arrow struck Sidron through the back. The white flags fell. A second arrow struck an enemy elder. Then horns sounded from both ridges, and soldiers rushed in, believing betrayal had begun from the other side. The war wall shook. Silver letters formed beneath the vision. Mercy Road was not an ambush. It was interrupted surrender. Lady Avara sank to her knees. No, she whispered. They told me he was careless. They said he trusted the enemy and got his men killed. Halvar's voice was smooth. He did trust the enemy. That was the problem. Toren turned on him. Kaeroth lifted his head. Halvar continued, because a cornered man chooses the blade he knows best. Had that surrender gone through, the northern houses would have called it cowardice. Kadrin's death gave you unity. It gave the crown cause. It gave grieving mothers something clear to hate. Lady Ivara looked up with a face emptied by horror. You used my son's body to give us an enemy. Halvar said nothing. The wall answered. Arusk. The wolf name of Kadrin's companion appeared in silver frost. Eira placed her wrapped hand to the stone. Rusk, wolf of Kaedrin Ivara, name buried under false battle oath, witnessed by mother, crown, and snow. The name lifted from the wall. A pale wolf shadow stepped out of the vision, thin as breath, and crossed the hall to Lady Ivara. It lowered its head into her lap and vanished into silver light. Lady Ivara broke. No one moved to make her grief graceful. Toren let the silence remain. Then he looked at Halvar. How many roads? Halvar's face tightened. The war wall began to frost over. Names appeared beneath the other carved victories. Too many to read fully, but enough to show the pattern. White Hollow, Red Fen, Northwatch. Border surrender after border surrender turned into massacre by men who feared peace would empty their hands of power. The witnesses stepped back, pale. Eira lifted both hands. No more. The frost stopped. Toren looked at her. She could feel how badly he wanted to tear the whole wall open. His pain had become justice, and justice could become hunger if no one named the difference. Not today, she said. For a breath, the hall waited to see whether an Alpha King would accept an Omega's restraint in front of witnesses. Toren lowered his head once. Not today. Halvar watched them both, and in his eyes Eira saw the last of his hope die. Not because he would not escape, because the king had listened. The door to the hall opened. A guard entered, breathless. Majesty, riders from the border packs have reached the outer gate. They saw the names on the steps. The hall went cold. Halvar smiled slowly. There it is. Kaeroth Rose. Toren's jaw hardened. The guard swallowed. They demand entry. They say if the snow has spoken, they want their dead red before sunset. The witnesses murmured in alarm. Lady Ivara still knelt on the floor, one hand over the place where Rusk had vanished. Eira felt the weight of the coming storm. If they refused, the border packs would call it another cover. If they opened everything, Frosthelm would drown in grief before nightfall. Halvar's warning would become useful again. Toren looked at Eira, not asking her to save him, asking how to keep truth from becoming another battlefield. She stepped toward the war wall. Let 3 enter, she said. 1 elder, 1 widow, 1 warrior. They may bring 1 name each. No blades, no claims yet. Only witness. The guard looked to Toren. Toren did not hesitate. Do it. Halvar laughed softly. You have handed your gate to her. No, Toren said. I have handed it back to witness. The words settled into the stones. Outside, horns sounded at Frosthelm's gate. Not war horns, arrival horns. The first border witnesses were coming. Eira's knees trembled, but she did not fall. Toren moved close enough that only she could hear him. This is no longer only my court. No, she whispered. That is why it might survive. The great doors opened again, and cold daylight spilled across the hall. 3 border figures entered. An old woman with a wolf-bone cane, a widow in a torn black veil, and a scarred warrior carrying no weapon, only a strip of white surrender cloth stained brown with age. The warrior stopped before Toren. For one breath, old hatred filled the space between them. Then he looked past the king to Eira. We bring 1 name, he said. Eira lifted her wounded hands. Then speak it. The warrior's voice broke. Vale of Northwatch. The war walls shuddered. Halvar closed his eyes, and the snow outside began to fall upward. The snow outside began to fall upward, not into the sky, toward the names. White flakes lifted from the courtyard stones and drifted through the open doors of the great hall, carrying threads of silver light. They gathered around the war wall as the scarred border warrior stood before Toren with the old surrender cloth clenched in both hands. "Vale of Northwatch," he said again. The name struck the wall. For a breath, nothing happened. Then the carved word Northwatch split down the center. A vision opened in the black stone, a frozen watchtower beneath a pale moon, two armies standing apart, and a young border alpha walking forward with his hands empty. His wolf, Vael, moved beside him, grey-furred and proud, carrying no battle rage. The surrender cloth in the warrior's hand appeared in the vision, clean and white then, tied around the young alpha's wrist. "He came to end the raids," the old border woman whispered. The vision continued. A Vale captain lowered his sword. Peace was possible. Then a red oath ring flashed from the snow. A council rider loosed an arrow from behind the Vale line. It struck the young alpha through the throat. His wolf leapt, and before it could howl his innocence, the ring opened and tore Vale's true name out of him. By dawn, the record called Northwatch an enemy ambush. By dusk, both sides had buried sons. The scarred warrior closed his eyes. He was my brother. The hall held still. Eira pressed one wrapped hand to the wall. Pain flared, but she did not pull away. "Vale," she said softly. "Wolf of the Northwatch surrender. Name buried under false oath. Witnessed by kin, crown, border, and snow." The wall exhaled silver. A Sabre wolf shadow stepped out of the vision, crossed the hall, and lowered its head before the scarred warrior. The man broke without sound, one hand buried in the ghost wolf's fur before it dissolved into light. No one called it weakness. No one dared. Toren turned to the border witnesses. Northwatch will be reopened. Its dead will be renamed. Its reparations will be heard before both packs. The old woman with the wolf-bone cane studied him with eyes that had survived too many kings. Words are easy inside warm halls. Toren removed the silver clasp from his cloak and placed it on the floor between them. "Then take a royal seal back with you. Tell your pack's Frosthelm will answer under witness, not war." A shocked murmur moved through the Vale nobles. The old woman looked at the seal, then at Eira. "And the snow? Name girl? Will she be brought to every border grave until your guilt is satisfied?" Eira's stomach tightened. There it was, the danger beneath reverence. Need could become a chain as quickly as cruelty. Toren answered before the court could shape the question into law. "No." The word was hard enough to stop the hall. Eira Venn belongs to no throne, no council, no border claim, and no grieving house. She will not be ordered to read the snow. She will not be carried from battlefield to battlefield like a relic. If she witnesses, it will be because she chooses. The border warrior frowned. Then how will names return? Eira looked at the war wall, the white snow, the silver letters, the waiting grief. "Slowly," she said. The answer disappointed some. It saved more. "The archive is open," she continued. "The snow remembers. Witness circles can be formed. Kin, crown, border, and record must stand together. No name should return through one person's pain alone." The old woman watched her for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "That is harder than vengeance." "Yes," Eira said. The old woman picked up the royal seal. "Then perhaps it is worth trying." Halvar laughed from his chains. Everyone turned. He stood near the far pillar, guarded on both sides. His face pale, but his eyes still bright with venom. "You think this ends because a few ghosts were comforted? Border packs will not ask politely once they understand how much was stolen. Your own nobles will turn on you. Your throne will bleed from both sides." Toren looked at him. "Then it will bleed honestly." Halvir's mouth tightened. Kaeroth rose from beside the hearth and crossed the hall. The royal wolf shadow stopped before Halvar, its silver name glowing steadily now. Halvar tried not to step back. Failed. Toren's voice lowered. "Lord Halvar, you will stand before the first witness circle at dawn. Not for execution, for naming. Every battle you falsified will be read. Every oath ring bearer will answer. Every family harmed by your records will be heard. Halvir sneered. Mercy again. No, Eira said. She stepped closer, though Toren's gaze flicked toward her in warning. She did not need protection from this moment. Mercy would be letting you become one clean villain and letting the court pretend everything dies with you. Her voice shook, but it held. Witness means you live long enough to hear every name you tried to bury. For the first time, true fear crossed Halvir's face. The snow outside brightened. The war wall accepted the sentence. The guards took Halvir away. This time he did not shout. His silence followed him like a darker cloak. When the doors closed behind him, the hall seemed to breathe. The border witnesses remained. The Vale nobles remained. The widows, soldiers, servants, and Omegas remained. No one knew how to stand in the new shape of the kingdom yet. That was honest too. Toren faced them all. The war council is dissolved. Until new law is written, no border action will be taken without witness from crown, kin, and snow record. Every red snow battle will be reopened in order. Every oath ring will be gathered and broken. Any house that hides one will be named before the archive. Then he paused. His eyes moved to Eira, not asking her to stand beside him as ornament, as witness, only if she chose. Eira stepped forward on her own. The snowflake mark beneath her skin cooled. The first law should be this, she said. No name is a weapon before it is a truth. The words moved into the wall. Silver letters formed beneath the carved battles. No name shall be buried to feed war. No mercy shall be renamed weakness. No witness shall be owned. Kaeroth lowered his head. The snow outside settled at last, falling downward again, soft and white over Frosthelm steps. Beneath it, the silver names remained visible, not exposed to every careless boot, but present for those who came to answer. By evening, the first witness circle was prepared. By nightfall, word had gone to the border packs. By dawn, Halvir would hear the first name. But for one moment before all that began, Toren led Eira out of the great hall and onto the highest palace balcony, where the winter sky had turned pale with late light. Below, the courtyard no longer looked clean. It looked awake. Eira wrapped her cloak tighter around herself. Her hands hurt. Her body ached. Her mother's goodbye still lived under her ribs like a wound warmed by tears. She had saved a king's wolf, opened an archive, named the first conquered beast, and changed the law of war before sunset. Still, she felt like the girl left on a palace road at 9 years old, wondering why no one came back. Toren stood beside her, close but not touching. Kaeroth's shadow rested behind him, scarred and watchful. I cannot give back what was taken from you, Toren said. No, I cannot make my house innocent. No, I can give your mother her grave, her true name, her place in the archive as witness, not abandoned. Eira looked at him then. His face held no performance, no royal softness arranged for gratitude. Only a man who had learned the cost of lies and was still standing in the cold with the girl who had exposed them. And you? She asked. What about me? What will you do when the packs come angry? Toren looked toward the northern dark. Listen first. It was not a grand answer. That was why she believed it. Eira's throat tightened. And if listening is not enough, then I will fight with my wolf's true name intact, not with hunger wearing its skin. Kaeroth lifted his head behind him. Eira felt the truth of that settle between them. Toren turned his palm upward, offering his hand. He did not reach for her. He did not close the space. The choice waited in the cold. Eira looked at his hand, then at the white steps below where she had knelt in blood-red snow. That girl had been ordered to scrub away truth. This one could leave a king's hand empty if she wished. So when she placed her fingers in his, it was not because the court watched. It was not because the snow demanded it. It was because she chose. Toren closed his hand gently around hers. Below them, silver letters glowed once through the snow. Eira Venn, not abandoned. Snow name heir, witness of Kaeroth. The abandoned Omega had entered the courtyard, as a disposable hand sent to wash away blood. She left it as the woman who made winter speak, returned the Alpha King's dying wolf to its true name, exposed the War Council's buried lies, and taught a throne built on conquest that mercy was not weakness. It was the first truth they had stolen,